Hi, just an update on some extra features that we've added into, or groups that we've added into the liquidity features. This is here. I've got iShares Silver Trust, the biggest EFT traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's at the moment showing its liquidity compared to down below the liquidity of the new silver futures. Now, so the silver futures is compressing here a little bit. Looks a little bit odd because of the time in between on the Globex hours, but we'll just address that in a minute. So the three features here, obviously you will all understand, is the time lag, liquidity sentiment, and the irregular, which is normalizing over 15 weekday periods of trading. And just looking at some things tonight, we see here this very big dump coming in and selling into the iShares, which wasn't really picked up and noted so much here on the silver iShares Silver Trust, and I don't quite know why that was. This was obviously brewing, and there was more positions being held at the time in the futures. This was to do with the very high level of tariffs that Trump was going to impose against the Chinese. But this is the importance of being able to look both at what you're trading and at the group of what you're trading. If we went in and had a closer look at that particular, so it's the start of April, we can see it's just gone very high very quickly going into this event here, and it stayed above, well above, until after that period. And look, to a certain degree that was happening here, but it's just not as strong as what was happening in the futures market coming in the last few hours to that, which would have been either warning you or telling you that you could have gone into and held a different position. If we just go to a futures just to even it out, one of the things you'll notice is we get this oscillation, the oscillation of between lit and closed hours. We iron that out by using irregular liquidity to even it out. The irregular liquidity is normalizing it over 15 periods, and I think that it shows very well that you can see these very strong periods. You know, we can see here that we're getting some buying here. We've come off a closing period, but if we go down and we have a look where it's being strengthened, we're being told in irregular liquidity for this particular CFD, but we're also being told much more broadly that the sector was ready to go into. So had a buying period. Here's the buying period. Had a little bit of a mean reversion, and then off it goes. And again, we can see it here. Not so much in particularly. Oh no, we can see we've got a good buy in the silver there, especially in this particular one. And we've had quite a build up to it. But there's nothing. It's I suppose it could be said it is negative until it is into that position. But in 30-minute trading periods, you would probably be trading this in 1 minute period. You would start to see it build, and you would like to see what then happens once it's into an upward movement. So you're probably going to watch it over an hour or two to see that starting to build. One thing that I would note here is that you do get these periods just at the open, which are quite difficult to read, and that's because as we get into the lit hours, or an opening period, you can get quite a large jump of liquidity and volume, which upsets. Look, so here it's sort of suggesting there's a little bit of a peak, but it's suggesting that it's tight liquidity. Just remember at that 9:30 bell going for an hour or an hour and a half, you can have quite changed positioning due to the Dixie moving around with stocks, and as people go in and out of stocks, the Dixie moves mechanically. So just remember you've got three rollovers in the global Globex or COMEX futures markets, which are traded around the world over most of a 24-hour period for 5.5 days. So those are at the close of the New York Stock Exchange. There's a half-hour changeover between futures centres that are managing them around the globe. Then 8 hours later we have the changeover between the Asian or Australasian markets and the European markets, and that changeover again takes about half an hour. and then at the open of the New York Stock Exchange. So those are the 3 half-hour periods that most traders like to follow. There is a small opening at the ASX too, which does put a little bit of pressure on, which is 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Anyway, I hope that helps your trading. These trading patterns were very useful, very great to trade. We can see we've had another build here. We can see the build here over the last couple of days, and it's loosened up again. But I would say that the next time we start to see a build, and if we don't see any price discovery, we're going to have some more upside price movement. Thanks for listening to this little update on the liquidity indicators. Just remember, you've got them now in the precious metals and copper in the futures. Thank you.